This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. At this moment, other than the fact that he no longer looked like a human, Sheng had evolved a step further. He had a dragon's tail wagging behind him. Other than the strong dragon chi, there was also an extremely violent and desolation chi around him. Roar! Roar! Sheng raised his head and shouted a few times in succession, causing the entire sky to tremble in fear. Dragon's roar! The originally clear sky was shattered by the sound waves. Everyone on the Xiankong Island was dumbfounded. They were so shocked that they could not speak. After Sheng let out a long hiss, he vomited out all the suppressed feelings in his chest and said in a cold voice, "Li Yunxiao, I've come back from hell to kill you." Guang Yuan's forehead was also oozing with cold sweat. This brat was a natural-born killing god. Yunxiao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Although he had been injured by the shock, most of the attack had been neutralized by the Mirror of Great Sorrow and the Devil Sky Silk, so he was fine. However, although Yunxiang's current state wasn't the birth of a true dragon, he was still like an ancient beast that had descended. He had the power to sweep away everything and was unrivaled. There are many people who want to kill me, but so far, they are the ones who have died. Although he was in an extremely disadvantageous situation at the moment, he was still very calm. There are many people I want to kill, but up until now, all of them are dead without exception. The two of them faced each other in the sky, and the world seemed to have become quiet. Only the lotus seat was still spinning slowly, but everyone felt an unusual pressure. Roar! Sheng suddenly roared, breaking the silence. An extremely strong sound wave shook the world as it blasted toward Yunxiao. As he roared, he himself flashed toward Yunxiao faster than a bolt of lightning. His three-pointed, double-edged spear had disappeared, but how could the strongest profound-level weapon in the world be stronger than a true dragon's claw? After the sound wave, a green dragon claw formed in the sky and slammed down. Yunxiao felt the air pressure coming at him like a mountain, and the true dragon's roar made his devil sky silk ring continuously. His blood and chi were shaken, and his eardrums were about to burst. Fuck you. Is it more powerful if you scream? Yunxiao was also filled with endless anger. As a man of two lives, what kind of genius had he not seen? What kind of battle had he not experienced? Even if his opponent really transformed into a true dragon, he would not be afraid. Sword technique demon slaying. His eyes flickered for a moment before he calmed down. With a light shout, the sword chi on the ice sword surged and slashed into the huge dragon claw. Boom. The dragon claw was torn apart by the sword chi. Yunxiao's body was surrounded by sword aura as he thrust a sword incantation into the ice sword. Tens of thousands of sword beams gathered from all directions, and countless sword rules appeared in the distant sky, dancing wildly. Everyone on the Xiankong Island broke out in cold sweat as they watched. Such a powerful sword intent was something they had never seen or heard of before. Dark North Kongtian's face was pale, and his eyes were gray. No one knew what he was thinking. The look in Yunxiao's eyes grew quieter, and his long robe fluttered in the air. He clenched his fingers into a sword gesture and remained still, as if he was sensing the power of heaven and earth. Sheng's eyes burst out with a cold light, and he said ferociously, "Is this the sword that almost killed me? I really want to know if this sword can still kill me now." He put his hands together and spread his fingers, forming a dragon in front of him. A vast dragon power surged out. Yunxiao's expression was calm. Standing in the sky and under the countless sword rules, he was like a god of swords, so awe-inspiring that no one could offend him. Killing you is just one more sword attack. Just now, I showed you the strongest sword intent, Yunxiao said slowly. Now, let me send you on your way with my strongest sword move. You have the right to do so. As soon as he finished speaking, the countless rules of sword in the sky quieted down and began to surge down, all absorbed into the sword. The sky turned extremely dark under the pressure of the two men, and Yunxiao was surrounded by a world of swords, as if a ray of light was slowly descending. Demon Slayer, Star Destroyer, and Dawnlight, he said softly. Combine the 3 swords into one and return all swords to their origin. Clang. The ice sword let out an intense ringing sound that broke through the dark atmosphere and reverberated in the endless sky. The sword seemed to have come alive in an instant. The entire blade became extremely transparent, and it seemed as if it would disappear in his hand. The ancient manhwa characters circled around the sword, forming sentences and segments. There were hundreds of them. Yunxiao gave the long sword an indifferent look and said with a smile, "Are we finally connected? I am the strongest swordsman of this era. Do you have the right to follow me? Prove it with all your strength." His face could not be seen clearly under the flashing sword light, and only his voice could be heard, each word piercing into the heart. Sword. Slayer. Star. Chen. Boundless sword will and sword techniques gathered into one sword. It was as if everything in the world disappeared and all the scenes turned into the image of this sword. It slashed down from the sky. Everyone was completely stunned. Under the sword intent and sword chi, they felt like they were falling leaves in the wind, so small and so helpless. Dark North Kongtian's mind was completely blank. As soon as this sword was drawn, he no longer had any doubts. Ruo Xiang's expression also changed drastically, and a sense of death spread in his heart. Originally, after obtaining great power, he had also obtained unprecedented confidence that he could sweep away all obstacles, but under this sword art that could destroy the world, his confidence began to waver. Damn you, Li Yunxiao. You're my destined enemy. Ruo Xiang roared, and his face became extremely ferocious as he roared, "I'll kill you even if I have to die. I'll kill you." Boundless dragon chi surged from his body and formed in the sky. A real dragon Dharma body appeared, as if it was real. The sigh of the true dragon. A power that seemed to come from the primordial era spread out, and the dragon in Yunxiang's hand roared. The dragon broke through the shackles of the world, as if an ancient true dragon had crossed through endless time and descended into the world. Boundless dragon power and an extremely powerful dragon might wreak havoc in the world. The powerhouses below the rank of a high-level martial supreme could no longer resist. They knelt down one after another and prostrated themselves at the feet of this man who was once a king of the heavens and earth. Even powerful existences like Lengyu and Nine Heavens felt fear and trembled in their hearts. They gritted their teeth and resisted the dragon's might. Shui Xian's face was also pale, without a trace of blood. However, her eyes flickered with a golden light as she stared at the rolling heavenly might. Boom. With a loud boom, the entire world lost all sound. It was not silent, but everyone's eardrums were instantly shattered, and blood came out of their 7 orifices. The world was covered in a white haze, as all the violent forces filled it and spread out in all directions. The water in the sea around the island had been evaporated, and the sea was retreating in all directions with the Xiankong Island as the center. There was even a powerful shockwave that was about to blast the entire Xiankong Island into dust. Amitabha's golden light glowed brightly again, and it was like a barrier had been opened, protecting the entire island. Guangyuan's expression was a little unsightly. He had been communicating with Amitabha for many years and had a certain sense. He had already noticed that the power in this transcendent grade profound level weapon was losing at an extremely fast rate, even less than before the Show of Treasures conference. After an unknown period of time, the rumbling gradually dissipated. The sky slowly disappeared from the paleness and returned to its original color. Everyone felt that the dragon's might was gone, and they all stood up in fear. They were all experts, and no one wanted to kneel. Everyone's eyes looked up at the sky, and they were all shocked. What was the result? Was the dragon descendant dead? In the desolate sky, 2 lonely figures stood alone. The 2 of them looked extremely embarrassed and desolate, no longer having the demeanor of a grandmaster and the aura of a fierce beast. Pfft. Both of them spat out a large mouthful of blood at the same time. They were both severely injured. They were actually evenly matched. Gulp. Gulping sounds could be heard everywhere. They were actually evenly matched. Was this the rhythm of fighting? Runxiang's loud laughter came from the sky, and he laughed so hard that he bent forward and backward. He laughed wildly as he spat out blood, and said, "As expected, I've caught up to you. This power that I've been dreaming of, this desire to kill you. I'm so close to killing you." Yunxiao wanted to say something, but as soon as he used his primordial energy, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. He didn't dare to speak and hurriedly adjusted his breathing. Every minute and second he could fight for now could determine whether he would win or lose. It didn't matter if he lived or died, but he couldn't and wouldn't lose. Even if he died, he had to kill the other party. This was the heart of martial arts of the two, and also the battle between the two strongest geniuses in this world. Everyone held their breaths, quietly waiting for the final moment to arrive. In the battle of geniuses under the sky, who would be the one to decide the fate? Even Guangyuan and Dark North Kongtian, who had strange thoughts in their minds, looked on quietly without moving. Although they had different thoughts, they were all martial artists and had the same heart of martial Tao that would never stop running towards the end of the martial Tao. The battle between Yunxiao and Ruinxiang had stirred the pride in their hearts, and at this moment, no one could ruin this battle. You must have exhausted all your origin power and your physical body is on the verge of collapse, right? Ruo Xiang spat out blood and laughed loudly. He knew that it was the stupidest thing to say at this moment, but he was really happy. He laughed and coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. As the blood dripped down, it turned into pieces of high-quality blood dragon stones and fell onto the Xiankong Island. But no one had the time to collect them. Yunxiao snorted coldly and did not say anything else. Ruo Xiang laughed and finally stopped coughing blood. Instead, he walked toward Yunxiao step by step. He walked extremely slowly, and every step he took caused the sky to shake. The wounds on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The body of a true dragon was the strongest body in the world. Yunxiao's pupils constricted as he found that the recovery speed of Ruinxiang's body was even faster than his. Even though he had the bright moon divine body and the imperishable golden body, and even absorbed a large amount of external energy from the violent energy earlier, he was still behind Yunxiang's dragon body. Are you feeling despair? Runxiang laughed hideously, and a bang came from the air. He directly exploded the air, and his fist hit the bull across the mountain. Bang! Yunxiao's figure exploded under the punch, turning into countless light and shadows and disappearing. The smile on Ruo Xiang's face froze, and his face darkened. Yunxiao was an extremely powerful 9th-tier alchemist, and his mental power could change heaven and earth and reverse time and space. He had very little strength now, and he was unable to lock the space of the other party with a single move. Instead, he became powerless. Yunxiao's figure appeared not far away. With a cold look in his eyes, he snorted and said, "Even if I'm weak, you can't kill me." In this state, aren't you in despair? He said sarcastically. The one who should be in despair is you. Runxiang sneered. He opened his hand, and a small white bottle appeared in his palm. Everyone frowned, not knowing what was inside. Yunxiao's eyes narrowed slightly, and he had a bad feeling. Bang! Ruo Xiang directly crushed the jade bottle, and 2 drops of white liquid with overwhelming spirit chi appeared. He sucked it in and swallowed it. Pai pa. As the spiritual milk entered his stomach, Yunxiang's face turned red, and the sound of his bones exploding came from his body. A powerful dragon's might was emitted from his body. The 5-fingered dragon claws became sharp, and the dim dragon scales glowed again. The 2 horns on his head also became lively, and he looked like he had been reborn. Everyone's expression changed drastically. What was that thing? It could actually heal injuries in an instant. Myriad Year Spirit Milk. Those 2 drops of Myriad Year Spirit Milk were there. Someone finally remembered and exclaimed. It's this item, no wonder. The crowd looked enlightened, and many of them began to worry for Yunxiao, their faces changing. Just a drop of the Myriad Year Spirit Milk was enough to kill a person and bring their bones back to life, allowing the injured to be fully resurrected. Back then, Yunxiao had used the first dragon's blood to exchange for 3 drops from Guangyi, so he still had 2 drops left. After consuming it, the injuries in his body were immediately healed by more than half. Humph. He snorted with dissatisfaction, clearly not satisfied with the effects of the myriad-year spirit milk. After he was defeated in the Battle of Red Moon City, the myriad-year spirit milk was unable to heal all his injuries. Now that his true dragon body was injured, it was not something that 2 drops of spirit milk could solve. Although he had only recovered more than half of his strength, it was fatal for Yunxiao. Sure enough, Yunxiao's face turned extremely unsightly. Although he had also swallowed a large number of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, it took time to transform them, and the results were not as immediate as the other party. Can you still escape from my attack now? Yunxiao said in a cold voice. He laughed hideously and threw a dragon fist in the air. Bang! Once again, he used hitting the cow across the mountain, and the space exploded. Yunxiao's face flickered. The sealing power of the punch had indeed made it difficult for him to circulate his spiritual power, and he could no longer escape in time. He hurriedly raised his ice sword to block the attack. Bang! Yunxiao coughed out a mouthful of blood as the sword trembled and was sent flying. However, after flying for a few dozen meters, his figure faded and disappeared into the sky. You want to dodge? Yunxiao laughed proudly, and his heroic spirit soared to the sky. He had never been so happy in his life. You can just use your own bones to become the first step for me to reach the peak of martial arts. He raised his head and let out a loud roar. The dragon's might shook the entire world. The people on the Xiankong Island had their expressions changed once again. Each and every one of them was terrified, afraid that they would have to kneel again. After all, they were all powerhouses with strong self-esteem in martial arts. It was too embarrassing to keep kneeling here and there. Fortunately, Yunxiao was no longer at his peak, and everyone only felt a burst of panic in their hearts. Other than a few whose strength was too low, those strong people forcibly withstood it. Bang! 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 The sky kept cracking under the dragon's roar, turning into a scene of desolation and destruction, but Yunxiao had never appeared. I didn't expect you to have such an ability, but how long do you want to hide? Yunxiang's face darkened, and he sneered, you should know that my true dragon body can recover faster than you. It'll only be more beneficial for me to delay. His words seemed to have worked. Yunxiao's voice rang out faintly in the sky, Helios Luna. Yunxiao suddenly threw a punch in the direction of the sound. Bang! The sky exploded, but Yunxiao was still nowhere to be seen. However, a huge black hole was created where his fist power landed. That black hole was incomparably deep, and it seemed to be somewhat different from the ones that were usually blasted open. Furthermore, it did not gradually repair itself like the other parts. Instead, it grew larger and larger, spreading out at an extremely fast speed, as if it was going to swallow the entire sky. What? Yunxiao frowned and revealed a suspicious look. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange scene. Soon, the entire sky was covered in darkness, turning into a world of darkness. Yunxiao lowered his head and saw that the Xiankong Island was still there, but there was no one on it. The ocean was still roaring in the distance, but it still looked eerie and terrifying under the night sky. Is this a swan and an illusion? Yunxiao was stunned for a moment, then he sneered and said sarcastically, the power of a true dragon is the most righteous and powerful in the world. Don't you feel embarrassed to bring out such an evil method? A cold light flashed in his eyes as he roared. The entire sky trembled as he tried to blast open the space. As expected, the entire world trembled under his dragon roar and was on the verge of collapsing. A red shadow suddenly appeared in the dark night sky and gradually turned into a full moon. It suddenly opened. Strange symbols flickered around the pupils in the full moon, forming half a circle and emitting a demonic color. That trembling space once again stabilized with the appearance of the blood moon, and it stared at Yunxiao with a cold glint. Does it make you awesome just because your eyes are bigger? A look of ridicule flashed across Run Xiang's face. He raised his dragon claw and was about to slap down. Under the blood moon, the space fluctuated slightly, and Yunxiao's figure gradually emerged. He held a sword in his right hand, his eyes cold as he stared at Reinxiang, then he slashed down with the sword. Boom. With a casual slash, there were tens of thousands of sword regulations that continuously gathered in the air and slashed towards Yunxiang. What? Ruo Xiang was shocked, and his eyes were filled with shock. His raised arm froze in the air, and he couldn't push it down anymore. He said in fear, "You. How can you still perform such a powerful sword move?" The power of this sword was almost the same as the star slash that had seriously injured him before. Just the power of the pressure was enough to suffocate him. Damn it! Ruo Xiang suddenly roared and transformed into a true dragon in the air. He suddenly broke through the shackles of the sword chi and instantly fled hundreds of meters away. Boom. The sword light passed by him not far away. The sharp and unparalleled sword essence was like a galaxy that crossed the universe. Cold sweat dripped down from Yunxiang's forehead as he was deep in thought. Yunxiao raised his sword again and slashed down with the same move. An illusion. This must be an illusion. Ruo Xiang's face was pale. With such sword power, it was already heaven-defying to be able to use one move with all his strength, not to mention to use every move so easily. Although he was 100% sure that it was an illusion, he still couldn't help but feel panic when the sword fell. He gritted his teeth and escaped again. Damn it! Fuck. Ruo Xiang cursed angrily. The other party's cold eyes seemed to contain ridicule, as if he was toying with a monkey. This made him extremely angry. He can turn defeat into victory by relying on some illusions? Ruo Xiang roared as he flew up and let out a series of explosions in the air, trying to get close to Yunxiao and kill him. This is a Pishio. Suddenly, his body came to a stop, and his eyes revealed a look of panic. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Yunxiao, staring at him coldly with a pale face, as if he were dead. You. Run Xiang was shocked. The cold shadow opened its mouth and said slowly, "Ninth brother, you're so cruel." As soon as he said this, another figure appeared. This person didn't have a head, but a face could be seen on his belly. He said miserably, "Brother 9, where's my head?" Another figure and another buy-in. More than 20 people came out one after another, all of them shouting, "Ninth brother, ninth brother." They were all crown princes of the North Sea. Ruo Xiang's face became abnormally pale, and he laughed with an ashen face. Li Yunxiao. Do you think you can shake my mind with these dead people? I wasn't afraid of these ants when they were alive, but now that they're dead, they're even worse. Brother Jiu, we're both crown princes. How dare you call us ants? Brother 9, I feel terrible without a head. Give me back my head. Ninth brother, we're waiting for you down there. Come and accompany us. The faces of those 20 overbrothers all became malevolent, and they all roared as they charged forward, surrounding and attacking Ruo Xiang. Everyone's expressions were so realistic, and they were all using their life's ultimate skills. There were more than 20 people with different faces, but the only similarity was that they all maintained the tragic state before their deaths. When they attacked together, the power was also earth-shaking. Ruo Xiang felt a chill in his heart, but he was born with an extremely strong murderous aura, so he quickly calmed down and sneered, "My brothers, you're just the dregs of the times. As an ant, you should have the awareness of an ant and die in peace." Boom. 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 He suddenly clenched his fists, and dragon energy exploded from his hands. Dragon fists shot out, and the few people in the lead were directly blown apart, their bodies and bones shattered. All of you, go to hell. Ruo Xiang's killing intent rose, and his hands formed a seal in front of him, slapping out a palm in the air. A dragon's shadow appeared behind him and turned into the power of a violent dragon, blasting in all directions.